All right, it's time for my weekly video. Before I know it, the week is gone. The Antarctica project apparently is top secret, and even I myself am not privy to everything that's going on. My husband, Brent, is the president, so we'll let him deal with it. In the meanwhile, I'm still going forward with Gail, the complete series, and I made a big discovery this week, which often happens to writers. I discovered, I used the Save the Cat themes to try to help me create an overall arc for the writing, because I'm writing something humongous, a compilation of 100 short stories. And I thought I was writing institutionalized, because that's what my Silver Skies novel was, the one that I wrote in the 1990s. When I figured out that it belongs to the Save the Cat category, institutionalized, then I figured out the ending. I realized I was already there. You say, what are these categories? Basically, it's the theme of the work. It's like the point of the whole story. In Silver Skies, I had two lovers who were victims of a society that wouldn't allow them to flourish as lovers and wouldn't allow them to be themselves. And they had to make a choice. Were they going to go with the system, or were they going to buck it? That's an institutionalized theme. And they chose to buck it. Another example of institutionalized would be George Orwell's 1984. Okay, in that story, sadly, the main characters decided to cave in and go with the system. Usually in an institutionalized story, when the main characters decide to buck the system, there's a sacrifice involved. And in Silver Skies, there is a sacrifice. Now, what's really interesting is when Steven Spielberg made the movie version of my novel, Silver Skies, he went with my 1990s version, where I was writing from my intuition, which was my best version. That I have not published that, okay? But that's the one that Steven Spielberg made the movie off of, and it was institutionalized. Basically, the lovers decided to buck the system. And it was very dangerous for them, and that was the sacrifice. Now, I thought that I was writing an institutionalized story with my memoir. It's actually, it's kind of like a novel in a way, but it's not really a novel because it's true. It's my true story about how I've grown spiritually, the lessons I've learned, what I and my men have gone through. And it's not just my story. It's basically, you could call it almost like a memoir of my husband, Brent. I know Brent Spiner. I know him so well that I can almost write his memoir. And I submit all my work to him, and he knows that if there's anything inaccurate, he is free to voice his opinion, and I will listen to him. So far, it seems like my intuition has been brilliant. Now, I'm now on, I think, about the 5th story, or maybe the 6th story, and I realized that I could not get into the zone approaching this as an institutionalized. In other words, that's what I thought I was writing, because the first couple stories show me as a codependent with an emotionally abusive spouse and not having the courage to break free. But then I realized to go forward with my story that I needed to have another character or person. I needed to go into Brent's point of view. I'm actually writing in what they call omniscient God's eye point of view, which means I'm going into everybody's heads, even the villains. That's the only way I can make the story work, because there are some believability problems with some of the future stories, like some of the stuff that Laurie McBride did would just be totally unbelievable if I didn't go into the villain's point of view. So I am doing that. And I'm realizing that I realize now why. Usually when I have a block, okay, when I have a block, and I was getting writer's block when I started getting to the 3rd or 4th story, thinking that I have to structure this as institutionalized. Usually when I have writer's block, when I'm working on a major project, it means that I haven't picked the right theme. Yeah. I'm trying to make, like I was trying to make the institutionalized theme work for Gail, the complete series, and it just wasn't working. And I remembered some advice Buddha gave me for my writing. He said, it's very important for you to enjoy your work. And so I thought, okay, how can I enjoy writing this? Trying to force it into institutionalized seemed like drudgery to me. I didn't want to work on it. It just wasn't working. Because in institutionalized, you're exploring the character's feelings of repression, oppression, because that's usually a part of the institutionalized theme. Like, should I go along with the system? Should I buck it? One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest is another example of institutionalized, the movie, and that was starting to seem redundant. By the time I was at the fourth or fifth story, constantly exploring that theme, it was like it was seeming redundant, like there was no new material. And I was getting bored. I was thinking, I don't want to write this. This is boring. Finally, it occurred to me that what I found interesting to write was, rather than exploring the oppression, which by the time you got to the fourth story, the fact that my characters were oppressed, were victims of evil, was well established, okay? And to keep bringing it up over and over again, and the fact that they couldn't seem to find themselves, was frankly becoming rather boring. And I thought, I just can't get into this. So how can I write this so that it interests me? And finally, I caught myself saying, and how can I make believable some of the things that Lori did? I mean, it was crazy. I mean, she bribed the whole LA police department. She was able to get in Brent's house no matter what he did. He wasn't able to get rid of her. He tried everything imaginable. Yeah, I mean, and I was thinking, this is getting boring. It's like, okay, so we've got a main character who's got the girlfriend from hell, and then we've got an organization called the Jesuits that don't want to let Brent and Gail get together. Okay, we already know this. So what's the point? Why keep writing, right? And I thought even I was getting bored with it. I'm thinking, well, this is the project that Jesus wants me to do. Finally, I found that the research I had to do to make the villain believable, to make it believable that Gail and Brent wouldn't give up on each other, was starting to become fascinating. I was figuring out all sorts of stuff. Like, I thought, well, Brent had to have hired a private detective, and he had to have gotten a lawyer. Obviously, and I finally figured out that there was a major legal case going on between Paramount and Brent, and that's how Brent was able to get a wiretap on my phone, which he got in January 1994. Wiretaps are not easy to get. He had a wiretap on my phone that lasted from January 1994 till, I would say, about 2002. For a wiretap that long, you need to have evidence that there is a major crime occurring, okay? Or you got to have a major legal case going on. And that's exactly what he got. I figured that out. And so now I'm writing it this way, where we got a major legal case going on, and the two sides are duking it out, okay? And I thought, now this is interesting. And it's like, no matter what he did, he hired I believe he hired a Harvard lawyer. Terrence Jenkins, I believe, was working. He's a Harvard-trained lawyer. And then there was a Yale-trained lawyer on the Paramount Studios side. So these two lawyers were butting each other out, pulling surprises on each other, trying to outwit each other. It was like cat and mouse. And I'm thinking, now this is interesting. And I thought, but wait a minute. This is not institutionalized. The story that I'm writing is not institutionalized. And I thought, what you're writing is a mystery thriller. And that's when the writing got interesting. So I went back and I said, you need to, I'm a big picture writer, so I went back and restructured the whole thing as a mystery thriller. It's called the Whydunit in the Save the Cat categories, and now the writing is interesting. So all of my 100 short stories are characterized as a mystery thriller, a whydunit. Now, normally when you think of a mystery or a crime novel, a lot like a mystery thriller, you think of trying to find the clues. But basically, they're structured about where you're exploring the nature of evil. That's how a whydunit is described, where you've got one surprise after another, and you're like looking for clues to figure out why did the criminal commit this crime. And in every typical mystery, you're usually trying to solve a murder, okay? There is a murder involved in this, and that's the murder of my great uncle, Howard Hughes. So the question we're trying to answer is, why are the Jesuits so obsessed with the great niece of Howard Hughes? And why did they murder Howard Hughes? He was murdered. And so the whole story, the whole arc now of the Gail the Complete series is to answer that question. Who murdered Howard Hughes? Why did they murder Howard Hughes? And it gets deeper and deeper. The rabbit hole gets deeper and deeper the further we go into the story. And it ends up becoming, this is going to almost become a treatise on the nature of evil. That's basically the mystery that Gail the Complete series is striving to answer, is the question, why is there evil in the multiverse? And why is there evil, and is the universe run by goodness? That's the question. That's the mystery. All of a sudden my eyes are watering. I don't think Satan likes what I'm talking about. Yeah. And why does Satan exist? Why is he allowed to continue his evil? Those are the questions that I will be answering in Gail the Complete series. That's the mystery. You say, you think you can answer that question? I think I figured it out, yeah. It is not a simple answer. That's why it requires a whole series. But basically, it's a mystery. And now it's interesting to me. Yeah. Like one surprise. It's cat and mouse between me and Brent, and this mysterious enemy. And the way they attack us, it's like, it's one surprise after another. Yeah. Yeah, one surprise after another. So, yeah, I am structuring this as a whydunit. It's that Save the Cat category, the whole series. And now the writing is working. Because it is a whydunit, I have to spend a lot of time in research, because it all consists in clues, picking up clues like, oh, we just learned something new. Now we're getting more light into the mystery, right? But in order to make it all work, like a typical mystery writer, I have to spend a lot of time in research. I've got to set up the plot, right? So that when the clues come up, it's like, oh, wow, now everything makes sense that I've figured out so far. And then the mystery just goes deeper and deeper and deeper, like every good mystery does. So, yeah, I have to make my weekly video, because it is a Gail commandment. I don't want to keep it strong. But I wanted to let you all know that I thought I was writing institutionalized. It's not. It's a whydunit, okay? The Save the Cat category called Whydunit. I can give you a little bit of an idea of how I went through the Whydunit plot points. So we have opening image. Yeah, I have Save the Cat Writes a Novel. You got opening image where where it shows me suffering a major identity crisis, living in my false self sexually and in every way. I don't know who I am, scared to find out, and I'm in a marriage that betrays who I am on every level, okay? Then the theme stated, this is what I believe is the theme, that we were all created to be good and loving, and that belief fuels us to be true to ourselves. But when we believe the lie that we're evil or defective, that belief warps and sickens us into evil. So that's the theme I will be exploring in depth through the whole series. Setup, In the setup, the beginning, I'm married to a pedophile, believing him to be a sound Christian, not seeing the truth about him. I've allowed myself to be diagnosed as a manic depressive, which is a false diagnosis. I'm addicted to a rigid, unhealthy Christianity. I'm lost in a false sexual puritanical identity as a way to feel good about myself. I'm dependent financially on my husband because I don't believe I'm a competent person, and I've learned helplessness and codependency. I am not free to leave my husband without risking my financial security because of my codependency. I have a controlling and emotionally abusive predator husband who is closing in on me, literally putting me in jail and eventually death. Yeah, and the reader's going to be able to see this as they go, forward with this. Like a typical mystery, you usually got a criminal villain involved, right? Okay. So, and also in the setup, we meet our second protagonist, who is my current husband, Brent Spiner, who the mysterious enemy is trying to make like me, striving to cause him to question his goodness and become dependent financially on Paramount Studios for his survival. And I see Brent as a superhero and have no idea what he's enduring on my behalf. And this is because I fail to see that I'm good because I'm so obsessed with being bad that I cannot deal with reality. Brent is beginning to have this problem as well due to Laurie McBride being inserted into his life. Though he's functioning well enough outwardly, inwardly he struggles with falling apart. He's starting to become like me, with serious doubts about his goodness and believing, ooh, they don't like it. Probably allergies, believing that he's at his core evil. And the catalyst, and Save the Cat writes the novel, they recommend you outline. So I've got to have this big overall picture of what I'm writing, and that's what I did here. In the catalyst, Laurie McBride drug rapes Brent Spiner. And this is when I begin to realize, because he gives me 3 weeks of silence, that without Brent in my life, who made me believe that I was good, I couldn't go on. Brent realizes how important I am to him, and because I see him as a superhero, this fuels him to resist Laurie McBride and to believe in his goodness and to heroically overcome Laurie's attempts to force him into evil. The debate for this, then we go into the debate stage, where I can't decide if Brent's really as good as I thought he was. And Brent himself has doubts about himself. And that I'm even more undecided about myself. Break into two. I decide to marry Brent when Jesus tells me that Laurie is a Vatican agent. And I've decided that Brent's good and that he's heroic. And then the backstory between at this time is the Jesuits now reshuffle, put their top leaders in charge of the Brent Gail problem, and Paramount Studios takes a back seat as the villain. We're dealing with the top honchos. Then we get into fun and games, okay? 9/11 happens because Brent tries to come out and marry me, and the Jesuits do 9/11. I decide the Jesuits are too much for me to handle, and even for Brent to handle, and I thought maybe Vladimir Putin would be a better bet. But it appears they're even too much for Vladimir Putin to handle. So in 2006, I reinstate Brent as my number one. The marriage list starts, even though I am strongly asexual leaning. And this is where I need to explore the theme. I need to accept who I am, which I'm not ready to do at this point. I'm starting to explore my true sexuality, though, and blossoming as a polyamorous person and not feeling guilty about it yet. Then Jesus shows up and rescues me and my men from Satan. Midpoint, Zach Knight's Jesuit order appears defeated because I start doing the Gail commandments, the Gail shield gets strong, and I just decide to forgive the Antichrist. And whoa, I lead the Antichrist to Jesus. Shocker! The Antichrist can be saved. So another clue gets unraveled. And we still haven't answered the question, the nature of evil, or is the universe run on goodness? The Antichrist just got saved. Wow, what a surprise. As a Christian, I never thought this was possible, Now we have Angelina, ballerina. Will evil never be defeated? Angelina uses brain control to force good people to act evil too, so that even drives the question even deeper on the nature of goodness and evil. See, all my short stories are going to be exploring the theme as we move forward. 9, the bad guys close in. Okay, this is when I get really confused because Jesus moved into my apartment, and it's like, whoa, the Bible didn't talk about this. And the bad guys close in. I'm very confused about what is good, what is evil, who is God the Father, who's Jesus. And it's just, I have to really explore and answer these questions. And this is where the theme starts really coming in. And I have to get out of my codependent attitude, which I have with my religion, which I have with everything, and learn to be true to myself, okay? All is lost. This is when Satan beats up Jesus and he goes in a coma. It's like, whoa, this isn't at all the way I thought the universe was run. I am totally confused. In fact, I think all of us were kind of confused. If Buddha didn't show up, it would have been horrible. And, like if Jesus dies, then my Gail shield would collapse because it's an extension of him. Then I'd be dead next. And then God the Father acts in a way which is very confusing to me. And it just, wow, it's just like one surprise after another. And I'm really questioning whether the universe is built on goodness or even whether I'm good, okay? This is the all is lost point in my life story. Dark night of the soul. I'm wondering if God the Father is good, because he seemed insensitive in how he treated Jesus in the battle of the gods, okay? And yet I like Jesus despite his flaws, and I still listen to Jesus when Buddha and Brent save his life. And Jesus appears depressed. I never thought this was possible. So that's Dark Night of the Soul in the whole series. Break into 3. Me and Brent work with the gods, especially Lakshmi and Buddha, to build a new life based on the belief that we're all good and need to be true to ourselves. I also decide that me and Jesus suffered a similar problem, doubts about our goodness, and basically I show my spiritual growth at this time and how I learned from Buddha and Lakshmi. Lakshmi is a Hindu goddess, and even from Jesus. And I do believe that Jesus at his core is very good, and finally believe this must be true of myself as well. Okay? The why behind the surprise is that we learn that any being, whether it's a deity, a human, or anything, if they doubt their goodness or feel that they are somehow defective, that is when I believe that's the answer to the solution of the mystery, okay, on the nature of evil. When we are true to ourselves the way we were meant to be, which is good, okay, then we feed the good forces. So basically, my personal spiritual philosophy right now is that fear and doubt are the root of all evil. Okay? But it's kind of a little deeper than that. So I'm going to be exploring all this. And this is not an easy question to answer. Okay? So the mystery is solved when the source of evil is revealed. The source of evil, I feel, is when you doubt your goodness and believe you're defective or bad and act on those doubts. Okay? And this can be true of a deity. We actually have 2 absolutely infallible beings at this time. God the Father and Jesus. Jesus has evolved to the way he was always meant to be. But basically, Gail the Complete series is going to be exploring how any being, including myself, can become the good person or being that they were meant to be, and how we can get off our path, okay? So yeah, that's basically what it's all going to be about. In the finale, I now live with my husband Brent, and I love it. I know that I'm perfect the way I am, which is an asexual leaning person, polyamorous. Brent also learns not to apologize for being monogamous. He experiences his own spiritual growth. Jesus learns not to apologize for being asexual and aromantic in a supreme deity. All those who believe that they were meant to be good will work together to bring the entire universe into goodness, and that'll be the wrap-up for the entire series. You might say, it sounds like you could do this in one story. No way. No way. This is actually really deep, and the answer involves emotional intelligence, okay? You can give a pat answer and just say, this is the way, this is the nature of evil, this is the nature of good, but that people won't understand it. The best way to help people understand this is they have to experience what we went through. So basically, it's a Whydunit, the mystery of the nature of evil. And like every good Whydunit, we ask ourselves, are we this evil? And the answer is yes, we could be. And then I'm going to try to show people how not to be evil. Okay? You might say, what do you think Satan's problem is? Satan, I believe, is full of fear and doubt, as is Lizzo, his Antichrist. The deeper you go down the rabbit hole of fear and doubt, the more evil you become. Yeah. When you start questioning the goodness of God the Father, the Creator. Okay? Yeah, that's when you go down that rabbit hole. Anyway, I have to make my YouTube video for this week, and here it is.